Whether you're recording or editing in a musically based timeline, it's really important to set the metronome and the time signature. And when you're recording audio, it's critical that you set the tempo before you start the recording, and I'll show you why in just a moment. If you're working in simple pop music structures, then setting the tempo and time signature is very easy. Down here in the transport bar, you can see the desired tempo and the desired time signature. So if you wanted to change the tempo of a project to 130 beats per minute, just click here, type in 130. Then during playback, all of your MIDI and virtual instrument tracks or other MIDI-based tracks will play back at the new tempo. If your project never changes time signatures, then you can leave this set at 4/4. However, if you wanted to change it to the desired time signature before recording, just click and then type in the two different integers separated by the / key. For example, 3/4 would be 3/4. Now the time signature and the tempo are set to be these values throughout the entire project. I'm going to set this back to 4/4 because that's what I want this project to be in. However, if your time signature or your tempo changes through the project, then there are tempo and time signature tracks upon which to make those edits. But remember just a moment ago I said it's important to set the tempo and the time signature before you do any audio recording? Let me show you why. I'm going to rewind to the beginning of this project. I'm going to add a new audio track. It's going to be called bass. And then I'll record a bass track. Now, if I play those together at the recorded tempo, they'll play together. But if I change the tempo, watch what happens to the audio. Now they're completely disconnected from one another. That's because MIDI can have the timing changed very easily, but it's much harder to change the tempo of an audio track. It's not impossible. In fact, Cubase has some really amazing ways to adjust the tempo of audio information right along with the MIDI information, but it's still a good idea to capture those recordings at the desired tempo first. So I'm going to set that initial tempo back to 120 beats per minute, and let's just pretend that we wanted to change tempo and time signature at measure 9. To do that, we need to edit the tempo and time signature tracks. So let's add those tracks to our project, but you should know that they're actually already added. All we're going to do is adjust the visibility by adding those tracks. So let's add a tempo track, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and change the size of these tracks just so that we can see them a little bit easier. You'll notice that right now the tempo track is enabled, and that's because down here in the transport bar, we have the Activate Tempo track enabled. If we turn that off, you'll notice that the power also turns off on that track. But let's go ahead and power that track back up again. And then if we wanted to add a new tempo change at measure 9, then all I need to do is single click on that timeline, and then I'm going to push that value of that little node that I just added up. But what is that exact value? Well, what I can do is come over to the tempo track, and with it selected, you can see those changes are input here into the inspector window. If I wanted to add another tempo change at measure 11, then I can click a new node onto that line, then click and drag the new value down. And then if I wanted that to happen linearly over time, I can select that event and change the type to a ramp instead. Now it's going to ramp from 140 beats per minute to 115 beats per minute. And I know that it's 115 beats per minute because I can see the value of that node here. And you can also change the time signature by adding a signature track. And then you'll notice that there's already a value of 4/4 put as our first measure, but if we wanted to change time signatures to 3/4 at measure 9, then I'm going to right or control click to get my toolbar and go to the draw tool, and then just click on that line. You'll notice that the value that it creates for that new signature event is in blue, so I can type in any value I want. So in my case, it would be 3/4. So that's a brief overview of how to change tempo and time signature, and in the next section, let's talk about taking a deeper dive into Cubase 10.